Hi, my name is Mike Marshev, and this is a special video for my good friend, Dr. Rob Gilbert at Montclair State University. Dr. Rob asked me to share a couple of stories that I share with audiences, and I have shared with audiences over the years. On a separate video, I will share my Notre Dame story, which Dr. Rob is familiar with and enjoys the message. But this is another vignette that I use. And it has to do with paying the price, the importance of paying the price. And let me share with you how I deliver this message during a live program, if I will. Bear with me here. It's going to take a little bit of time, not too long. But I asked my wife once. I said, honey, I said, in the whole world, who would you like to meet? Who would you like to be introduced to? And I expected her to say Robert Redford or some famous movie star or an actor. And she said, I'd like to meet George Bush Sr. and his wife, Barbara. That floored me. But I said, are you sure that's who you want to meet? And she said, yes. So here's what I did that most people don't do. If I asked you that same question, who would you like to meet? And you tell me, you think a little bit, and you say, okay, the whole world, I'd like to meet so-and-so. You pick a name. I'm asking you now, who would you like to meet? You pick a name. Would you really like to meet that person? Yes. Are you sure you want to meet that person? Absolutely. I'd love to meet that person. So I'll ask you this then. If you really want to meet that person, what have you done about it? And in most cases, when I ask audiences that question, the answer is nothing. I really want to meet them, but I haven't done anything to actually meet that person. So I asked my wife that question, and she said George Bush and his wife, Barbara. And I did something that perhaps you don't do. I did something about it. I wrote the ex-president, it was the ex-president, George Sr. at the time. His offices were in Houston, Texas. I wrote him a letter, and I said, Dear George, not dear President Bush, because he was no longer the president. I said, Dear George, guy to guy. And I said, I asked my wife in the whole world who she would like to meet. And lo and behold, she said, you and your wife, Barbara. Now, I said, how about if I share a cup of coffee with you in Spain? Now, why Spain? Very, very important point. When you want to meet somebody, when you want to connect with somebody, when you want to have something to do with somebody, you've got to find what I call the hook. And the hook is nothing more than a common denominator. Professor Rob and I have Dr. Rob and I have a hook, and that was the University of Massachusetts. We both went to that university. So when we first introduced ourselves, that was a commonality, and that broke the ice. We had something to talk about. That was the hook. Owning dogs is a hook. Graduating from college at the same school is a hook. Being in the same club, the same month of your birthday, your same star, Taurus, or whatever it is. These are hooks that help instigate a relationship. They help motivate or stimulate a conversation. That's the hook. So I needed a hook to meet the ex-president of the United States. And the hook was we both were on slate to speak at a conference in Spain. That's where Spain came in. So I said, Dear George, I'd like to buy you and your wife a cup of coffee. As luck would have it, we're both going to be in Spain. After I speak, after you speak, let's meet, a cup of coffee. Everything will be great. What did I expect? I expected nothing. But in fact, I did get a letter back with the ex-presidential George Bush seal. And it said, Dear Mr. Marshev, thanks for the kind invitation. But the president, this was his secretary writing to me, his secretary said, he's going to be busy in Spain. He thanks you for the invitation, but no thanks. Okay, that's what I expected. 50% of salespeople quit after one try. Most of everybody quit. They were rejected. Boom, they go away. An additional 25% of salespeople try it again. They go for number 2. I then waited for my next hook, which happened to be a meeting, a conference in Las Vegas, where he was speaking again. I was speaking again. I sent the second letter. And I said, Dear George, if you remember, I invited you for coffee in Spain. It didn't work out. As luck would have it, we're both going to be in Vegas. Bingo, let's have coffee in Vegas. That was my second try, second letter. I expected nothing. I got a letter back. The seal, the whole deal. Thank you very much. We remember you, but he's going to be busy in Vegas and no thanks. All right. So 80% of sales happen after the 5th contact. So most people would go away after 1 or 2, but not me, not the people who know how things work. So I waited, and I was down in Washington, D.C., and I went by a store that had all pictures of ex-presidents in that you could buy. So I bought George Bush's picture, sent it to him, and said, George, my wife would really like to have coffee with you and your wife, but if you can't make it, at least sign the picture and send it back to her. Well, she did. He did. He signed the picture and sent it back to my wife. And now here's the question I asked the audience. Very important point here. Here's the point coming up. I asked the audience, how many people in the audience feel, and it's too late now, both Barbara and George are no longer with us, but back then, if I didn't quit, how many people would think that I really could have coffee with that gentleman? I asked the question. Most people say no, some people say yes. Well, I then tell them this. I think I could guarantee that back in those days. I could guarantee that I'd have coffee with the ex-president of the United States. And I said, how could I guarantee that? And they all quizzically look and they don't know the answer. So I said, here's how. What's the common denominator? What's the hook? The hook was, he's a speaker, I'm a speaker. So if I really wanted to have coffee with him, if I really wanted that, I would hire him to speak for me. I would become his boss. I would hire him because he does that. He speaks, so I would hire him. And I'd say, George, my son's having a birthday on Tuesday. How about you swinging by and wishing him a happy birthday? I'd be happy to pay for it. He then would say, well, 2 airplane tickets from Houston, first class, hotels at the Ritz-Carlton. I'll do it for $10,000 or maybe $100,000. I'll do it for $100,000 plus air, plus meals, plus hotel. $100,000 and I'll be there. Then I asked the question. I want George Bush to have a cup of coffee with my wife. That's what I want. But what is the price? The price would be $100,000. So then I would say, here it is. Do I want to pay the price? I know I could do it, but do I want to pay the price? And in this case, the answer was an emphatic, no, I don't. I don't want to pay the price for that cup of coffee. The lesson, folks, is that number one, once you decide what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, who you want to meet, what success level you want to achieve, you then decide what's the price. What's the price for me doing that? Because everything has a price, and you can do just about anything you want if you commit yourself and you're dedicated to paying the price. And most of your failures, most of your reasons why you are not more successful isn't because you can't do it. It's because you choose not to pay the price. I could have had coffee with the gentleman if I wanted to pay the price. I didn't, so therefore I move on. So Dr. Rob, I hope that made sense to your students. Select, focus, know what they want. Also, very key point, those percentages are very key. 50% quit after 1 try, 25% quit after 2 tries, 80% of good things happen after the 5th try or more, 5th, 8, 10, 12 tries. So if you really want something, you got to go after it. And then you got to know that there's a price to be paid, and do you want to pay the price? So that's today's message. I hope it makes sense. Let me know. And if it does, maybe I'll come with some more ideas for you, Dr. Rob, because I enjoy talking to you and I enjoy talking to your students. And I'm glad for the day that you and I bumped into each other, although not on campus, but afterwards. The Hook, UMass, go. I was going to, you know what? I almost said go Redmen, go Minutemen, and I'll talk to you later. Good luck, folks. Bye for now.